Welcome to the Cruise Lifestyle.
Well, thanks, Bruce, once again. Good to catch up.
My pleasure.
Been a busy week, judging by the editions of Cruise Weekly that have come out in the last week or so.
Yeah, which is great. Lots of excitement about people booking and anticipation. So that's good. And everyone's kind of releasing their programs, even for 2024 early. It's all good signs.
Yeah, well, we'll have a chat about that a bit later on, and also employment.
Yeah.
The tourism industry is picking up, obviously, by the amount of ads that are there for jobs and things, which is awesome.
As most of the tourism and travel suppliers will have put off big EMs and salespeople, and there's a bit of action opening up there again as people see a bit of optimism. I mean, cash flow is still very tight on shore, and particularly businesses that would be focusing on touring in Europe in European summer 2023, 2022, they don't have any cash, and so it's going to be, there's a long way to go for recovery, but it's better than a year ago.
Absolutely. Great signs.
Yeah.
We'll sort of skip through some of the stories, I guess, that have happened in the last week or so.
Sure.
Top of list, Royal Caribbean's World Cruise. Aussies are sort of really up there in terms of the booking numbers and things.
Yeah, this is really interesting. I mean, look, obviously the home market of the USA is the main source of customers, but in terms of international bookings, Australia was number one after the US, and that's pretty amazing, because the top cabin, I don't know if we talked about it last week, but top cabin was more than $1 million for that cruise.
I've actually got a friend that I work with who sold a cabin, I think, about $450,000.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, this it's a 9-month cruise, and quite an amazing itinerary. But obviously just clearly reflects, people haven't traveled for a couple of years and they've got cash and they're itching to spend it on bucket list experiences. So yes, it was very interesting to see the strength, and also that World Cruise is now more than 70% sold out.
Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, at fairs like that. So yes,
well, I think
it's an ill win. Some people have done pretty well through the pandemic.
Yeah, look, I think we're going to cover this later on, but there's definitely pent up demand.
Yeah.
For longer, more luxurious itineraries. It seems to be really kicking off in that sort of event. I think we've spoken about it before with the world cruises from some of the ultra luxury.
Absolutely. Again, selling out in a day, because obviously they don't have a lot of cabins on those intimate ships, and so bang, all sold super quick. So then your retailers are jumping for joy that they've finally got some business coming back in. So that's definitely
awesome. Celebrity Cruises.
Yeah.
Celebrity Ascent is the next one off the blocks. They've cut the steel on that one. Yeah,
and so again, I was on a meeting yesterday, and someone from Claire pointed out that there were more than 30 new builds going to launch in the next 12 months. So cruising is back in a big way, and this still cutting for Celebrity Ascent. So that, I think it's the third ship in the Edge series, the Celebrity Edge, Celebrity Beyond, which I think they've just launched, and now Ascent. And I think there may be 5 in the full build program, but yes, very exciting. And look, every time they bring out one of these sister ships, they are a sister ship, but then they tweak it, based on the experience of the previous cruises, and so I'm sure that we'll see some surprises there once Ascent comes out.
Yeah, there's always something new, especially when you're talking technology and things like that. So
totally.
Silversea have delayed their season. This is probably more to do with the uncertainty here.
Yeah, delayed it, but in a positive sign, they haven't cancelled it. So they had Silver Muse coming down just before Christmas. The season was supposed to start, and pre-COVID it was going to be a repositioning, I think, from Singapore via Bali into Cairns, and then down the east coast to Sydney. So with the restrictions, they cancelled the repositioning. Refunded all of those passengers, or rebooked them, but they were still going to kick off from Cairns, I think, on the 21st of December. We've just got no certainty, which, as we talk about each week, but it's looking increasingly likely that the ban will be lifted on the 17th of December when it expires. But of course, with that uncertainty, Silversea, they've taken the decision to cancel the first 3 departures of the season, but they are still actively planning for Silver Muse to be here and kicking off on the 5th of February 2022. So that is really good, and if that happens, they'll be the first, because as we know, it takes 10 to 12 weeks to get these ships up and running and crew here, etc., etc. And again, part of that uncertainty is it's all very well to say you're going to restart, but what about the crew? Are they quarantined? Are they vaccinated? It will be completely safe, but it's just that there's no guidance from the government on what you're going to have to do to tick all of their boxes to allow that season to go ahead. So, it's positive, and but we just need that guidance.
Yeah, the federal and state governments can't quite agree on us going into the state, let alone.
But at least, that's right. Well, at least they're starting to talk about cruise, so that is such a great breakthrough compared to where we were probably even only a month ago.
Yeah, the conversations we were having a month ago are a lot different to what we're having now.
Totally.
And look, just staying on Silversea, they've been back to Antarctica. They're kicking off on that one.
Yeah, back to Antarctica. So again, basically the Antarctic season is kicking off. I think Ponant was the first to head there. I think we talked about that last week. But yes, Silversea, again, cruising out of Chile rather than Argentina. And, that is a very popular product. As you know, Silversea's got these sort of split fleet. They've got, they call them the classic ships, which sort of cruise the Mediterranean, the Caribbean, Australia, etc. But also their expedition vessels, which are, again, all of that Silversea style and luxury, but you're getting off and doing excursions on, zodiacs and kayaking, etc., etc. And so the fact that they're heading off to Antarctica, it's a mainstay of their expedition program. It's really good news.
One day, want to do an Antarctic cruise?
Yes, indeed.
It's certainly a bucket list one.
Yeah.
Aranui.
Yes.
Has been delayed. That's.
So this is an interesting one. So Aranui, they operate in French Polynesia, and they've built a cruise business around freight, because basically French Polynesia is very big, a lot of islands. A lot of far-flung islands, and obviously they've got to provide provisions and supplies and all that sort of thing to keep those communities going. Aranui, they decided many years ago that they could also combine these cargo operations with passenger, and so they've had this hybrid, a succession of ships, Aranui 1, 2, 3, 4, and I think we're up to 5 now, where they carry cargo and passengers. Anyway, they announced maybe 18 months ago that they were going to build their first exclusively passenger ship, which is great news, and clearly, again, a bit of a bucket list destination. So good to see, but unfortunately, with the construction's been delayed. So it's going to arrive later than expected. But still on track. They haven't cancelled it. It's just it means all of these things again because of COVID. The construction's delayed, so they can't start selling, or they'll sell a different season. There's a lot of moving parts to get a new ship onto the market.
Yeah, and what sort of size? Do you know what size that one is?
Yeah, I think it's a couple of hundred. It's quite a small ship.
So it's a good one to consider for places like Bora Bora and things like that.
Absolutely, yeah. Getting around. They're saying it's so it's called the Aramana, and what I found really interesting with this ship is that, as well as it's got restaurants and nightclub, blah blah blah, spa. It's also got an onboard tattoo parlor inside. I love that. Well, it's because of the Polynesian connection, and I guess there will be plenty of people, rather than buying opals on their cruise ship, the traditional cruise ship jewelry or art. They'll take home a souvenir in the form of an authentic Polynesian
it's a bit more permanent than a T-shirt, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
That's funny. Fred Olsen has headed up to Norway in search of the Northern Lights.
Yeah, and so this is also interesting. Fred Olsen, a British cruise line, and there's been a great cruise restart out of Britain. In fact, they were really one of the first. They were the first Western market really to reopen, but with strictly restricted cruising with all COVID safe and for British passengers only. In fact, in some cases, English passengers only. So the cruise couldn't call it in Scotland, a bit like Australia, the unfederated states of Australia. But anyway, so this is interesting in that Fred Olsen it's an international itinerary. So they're heading across the Baltic to explore Norway and, all those iconic sort of Northern Lights voyages, great part of the expansion of that great restart of the British cruise industry, and long may it happen.
Well, they've certainly gone gangbusters in terms of the British
absolutely
sort of rebound, haven't they? I mean, there's been so many.
Well, it was like every single for a while there, every single brand of cruise ship, that was where they were heading, and I think there were a couple of world inaugurals because it was the only place that you could cruise for a while, because they kind of got their vaccination program with the Astra out very early. Now they're sort of heading for winter again. They are a little uncertain about what's looking like, but during the summer definitely it's been a great restart for them.
Awesome. Okay, well, let's bring the conversation down and talk about Australia.
Yeah, for sure.
Garden Island.
Yes.
Back and forth and back and forth. Now it's sort of off the table again.
So this is, the uber eager Dominic Perrottet, the New South Wales Premier. Very pro opening, very pro cruise. I'm sure New South Wales will be the first jurisdiction that gets it up and running. But also in that conversation, someone, I think, on a radio show asked him, what about Garden Island? And, obviously, I think probably without understanding the long history of attempts to get Garden Island usable by cruising, was, stomped on from a great height by the Federal Defence Minister, Peter Dutton, who, it's one of these things, you can never use Garden Island for cruising. And it's for a very, very important reason to do with defence, but it's top secret and we can't tell you why. So yes, and look, I think it is certainly preemptive to be thinking about additional cruising capacity, although it is interesting that pre-COVID, Royal Caribbean, there were quite advanced plans for a terminal in Yarra Bay, in Botany Bay, and that obviously went into hiatus, and there's a lot of community opposition there. And I think the cruise lines would, much prefer an in-harbour solution. So why not, revisit Garden Island? But apparently the answer is still no. Well,
that'll be the next thing. Once we get cruising up and running here, it'll be all about Sydney and where do we put new cruise to. I mean, I know Royal Caribbean has tried out Port Kembla a couple of times and had a bit of a run, but
and look, will it look different post-COVID? Would you get home porting out of some of these regional ports? And it's not inconceivable. There's a lot of airlift, for example, to places like Ballina, Coffs Harbour. Could you just think a bit differently? And I don't know. There's a lot of options.
Well, no, I mean they've built a terminal in Newcastle many years ago. P&O home ported out of there for a little while, but it didn't seem to last long. But never say never, can you?
No, indeed.
Look, speaking of looking ahead, we'll skip a couple of points ahead. Carnival and Princess have both released 23-24 seasons, and they're looking pretty huge.
They are, and again, we've had a hiccup in Australia, but these cruise lines are definitely committed to the local markets. And Princess, a massive world cruise departing out of Australia, they're definitely confident that they can fill a world cruise, with Aussies pretty much. And that's an amazing itinerary. And yes, as you say, also Carnival Cruise Line, definitely committed to having two ships in the market, home porting out of Sydney and Brisbane. And they're hedging their bets a bit. There's a lot of, I think they're probably reading the tea leaves and saying, well, there might end up being some people who you might be wanting to attract people new to cruise by then, and so quite a lot of short itineraries, taster sort of things, give people a bit of an idea. So those cruise hesitant people, lots of domestic. Again, who knows when New Zealand will open up. So it doesn't feature hugely in the itineraries, as opposed to South Pacific. But yes, also lots and lots of domestic cruising. There's a couple of departures to PNG.
P&O being so successful with the short cruises and domestic cruising and things like that. So
yeah, absolutely.
Not surprising that people like Carnival have jumped on board that.
Yeah, I mean, look, it opens it up to a new demographic. And definitely there are people who absolutely love the Carnival Cruise Line product. It's a generally, my guess would be, it's a reasonable cohort of the population, quite a big proportion, who perhaps, haven't cruised and certainly haven't been cruising, through the pandemic. So yeah, it opens it up for that. And yes, as you say, also, yes, Princess, we're just today out with their 23-24 Australian program. So, that's a fantastic sign of positivity for the industry.
Well, they're looking at 2 Royal class ships out of Sydney, which are the biggest ones they've got. So it's a good vote of confidence, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you were saying before, I think Carnival are looking at PNG and all that sort of thing as well. So
yeah, that's right, and that's interesting. Look, obviously it's a long way off, but at the moment PNG's very, very low vaccination rates, and so can't see how that could possibly happen in the current situation. But by then, 23-24, what's that? A couple of years away. Yes, surely by then, the world's going to look very different.
Well, they seem to, talking about the time ahead, they seem to be releasing a lot earlier than they normally do. I think Princess is about 11 months ahead of what they would normally release that sort of program. So,
oh no, it's incredible. And that program also, when they release it, it often comes with massive anticipation of among the cruise sellers to target those for the world cruise, particularly. Incentives, ways to get people to book. And clearly they're sniffing the wind. There is money out there. There are people who've done pretty well out of COVID and out of, booming property markets, etc. At the moment, you can't buy a new car. You can't, you've probably done all your renovations, but you certainly can't get a builder. So go.
I know with Princess in particular, they've a lot of the people that are on the 2022 World Cruise, next year's one, have actually been moved or offered to go across to 2024, and a lot of them are taking that up. So
yeah, totally.
Royal Caribbean appoints their first Bahamian. Is that how you say it?
Yeah,
Bahamian. Bahamian godmother.
Yeah. So this was in Fort Lauderdale, in Florida. And I think this was Odyssey of the Seas, is their newest ship. But again, obviously they've got a contractual obligation to get these things built, but they're taking every opportunity to herald the return of cruising. So it was the Bahamas is obviously a key destination in the Caribbean for Royal. And so, yes, they've got their first Bahamian godmother. Her name's Erin Brown. She's a Paralympic athlete. Ticks every box. She's got a cancer survivor, an amazing person. And yes, quite a symbolic christening, because also the Bahamas was where, when cruising was banned out of the US still, Royal did resume its first voyages out of the Bahamas, which was very advanced in terms of its cruising protocols and real, because obviously cruise is a huge part of the nation's economy. So also Royal, they've got a sort of private island destination in the Bahamas called Coco Cay, or I think they call it Perfect Day at Coco Cay. And so a long, very close relationship with the Bahamas. So pretty exciting.
Now, actually, this is something we haven't sort of discussed to talk about, but while we're on the point, Royal were looking at a similar island in the South Pacific.
Yes, indeed.
Do we have any updates on that?
I believe nothing whatsoever. Again, I think it just got put in the too hard basket, but they were very close to announcing it. Really, pretty much just before COVID. Gavin Smith, who's the head of Royal in Australia, I had a conversation with him, and he sort of, without quite announcing it, he really dropped some very heavy hints, and then the next day they did announce this plan. It's amazing. Destination development. Obviously, they want to control the experience for the guests, and so they invest a huge amount in the local communities to make this happen. But yes, remains to be seen. I guess we hasten slowly. Of course, we want to get cruising up and coming and up and going in Australia. And I'm sure once Royal are able to announce their plans, my guess would be that will be part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Hawaii, definitely out for cruising until at least 2022.
Yeah, now, and this sort of attracted a few headlines, but 2022 is, 6 weeks away.
Not that far away.
No. Yeah. So I don't think it's that big a deal. Like all Northern Hemisphere destinations, they're all grappling with COVID outbreaks and sort of trying to manage this fine balance. So, this was sort of, as I said, a headline announcement. There's definitely a lot of interest out of the Australian market for cruising in Hawaii, and I know Viking's putting a ship there, NCL, obviously, Norwegian Cruise Line.
We spoke about that a few weeks ago, didn't we?
Yeah.
Particularly with the Viking product.
Correct. And we've got, I think from the 1st of December, maybe, or certainly early December, we've got Hawaiian Airlines reopening flights from Australia. So all the signs are positive. I think, let's not focus on the short term. No one's going to be booking a cruise today to cruise in Hawaii tomorrow. They'll all be booking for 2022 and they can. So go for it. Well,
personally, we're looking at November or something next year. So
yeah, exactly.
Hawaii, we've got that lined up. So
yeah.
Looking forward to it, actually.
Yeah.
Qatar.
Yes.
They've had a bit of a cruise industry there, but up till this point has been visiting ships, but they're looking at establishing home port cruises.
Yeah, one of my team was lucky enough to be in Qatar recently, and he got to speak to someone very senior in Qatar tourism, and cruise is definitely part of the plan. Look, most of these Middle Eastern nations that have decided to use that word pivot away from oil towards tourism, cruise has got to be part of the mix. And so Qatar, they have been investing. They've got an amazing cruise terminal, plans to grow it. Hamad International Airport has become it's an amazing hub in the Middle East, and obviously Qatar Airways, a massive network, and that's an amazing airline product. They think that this cruise terminal will do similar things for cruising. In terms of cruise tourism for Qatar, and obviously it's all about getting people to visit the destination, and if they can manage it, it is very significant for tourism, because as well as people just calling, in these, it's a port of call on their itinerary, they actually come, they do pre and post stays, they experience the destination in more depth, and of course it's ideal because Qatar has such amazing connectivity to anywhere in the world through that airline network. But obviously, it takes a lot of investment. You've got to build it. It's one of these things, build it and they will come. Well, okay, they've built it. They're now approaching cruise lines and hoping that, cruise lines are now probably planning 2025, 2026 itineraries, and they're definitely hoping that Qatar will.
Well, look at how Dubai's grown over the last X amount of years. I mean, MSC are basing ships there and things like that. So
so similar strategy.
Holland America. They're up to their 5th ship that has been returned to service now, so they're sort of getting their feet on the ground and running.
Look, again, to coin a phrase, it's not a race. And Holland America, part of the Carnival Corporation, they've had a measured return. So their latest one is New Statendam, and it's the 5th one to enter service. Again, out of Fort Lauderdale, so kind of the key American cruise ports. Quite significant, obviously, because America is such a big market and kind of the base for a lot of these cruise lines. So, yes, really good to see Holland America up and running, and it's New Statendam, and just a Caribbean itinerary, which is sort of their bread and butter in that region. So, yes, really good to see.
Yeah. Skipping across to Disney.
Yep.
They're actually, we spoke about some of the entertainment stuff last week, but they're actually doing a stage adaptation of The Little Mermaid.
Yeah, this is on Disney Wish, and of course, Disney, leaders in entertainment. Why wouldn't they? But we were joking that, you know, perhaps this would be that they could have a stage that is a giant fish tank, you know, or you know, will there actually be a mermaid swimming up, you know, to the back of the ship? And look, you never know with Disney. But yes, look, that's obviously something that will, you know, get those Disney aficionados on board. And I think, to be honest, you know, it's going to be so popular. It'll be a long time. Disney Cruise Line, there's a lot of demand out of the Australian market, but they've only got a few ships, and you know, generally it's very hard to get any spots on them because Disney is such an iconic product. Sells very well out of the North American market, obviously. But cruising's big and Disney is big. But yes, you know, let's hope that you know, one day there's more capacity for Aussies to see these amazing things. Yeah,
one day might even see a ship down here. You never know.
Oh, you never know.
That'd be pretty awesome.
Yeah, definitely.
The Australian Cruise Association have started a bit of a roadshow, just getting sort of word out there about cruise and things like that.
Definitely, and so this is being conducted, quite an interesting initiative. They're the organisation that represents the cruise ports, destinations, tries to attract cruise ships to Australia because of the economic benefits that they bring, the shore excursion operators, all that sort of thing. And they've got a roadshow. Now, how on earth can you run a roadshow in Australia at the moment? Well, it's just been quite a clever arrangement in that the GM of the Cruise Association, a lady called Jill Abel, she lives in Tasmania, and they're doing the roadshow in Queensland. And so I think Queensland is letting Tasmanians in, even though they're not letting people from most of the other parts of Australia in. So Jill's up there. They're running a roadshow to showcase cruise. It's being done in partnership with CLIA, the Cruise Lines International Association, and also I think with the support of Tourism Australia. So again, recognising the key role that cruise has in Australian tourism, you know, so a great initiative, and that's kicked off this week. So yes, really good.
So is this targeting corporate sort of thing, or is this like a consumer?
Yeah, it's not consumer. It's raising awareness of cruise and its benefits, and showcasing cruise to suppliers, destinations, you know, and I guess tourism operators to see how they can take part in the cruise boom that's going to come.
Yeah, I think it is going to be a boom when it starts. So
without a doubt.
Yeah. Northern Ireland, their cruise sector's restarted. That's an interesting destination as well. That's
definitely. Look, obviously, you know, where the Titanic came from, so, you know, perhaps not such a great, you know, although the Titanic Museum is an amazing attraction, and you know, for Belfast. So basically, they've just put out a statement because their summer is ended, and they've had a big successful season of cruise restarting. And I think the last ship to call was Fred Olsen Borealis, maybe. But yeah, I think they've had about 80 calls through the season. So, you know, well and truly.
That's a pretty good season, isn't it?
Absolutely. You know, and again, bringing all that economic benefit to the locals.
Australian government take notice. It does work.
Yeah.
MSC Seashore.
Yes.
Has set sail. That's one of the new ones.
Again, another big initiative for MSC, and showing the resilience of cruise, that they are, you know, still, you know, putting new ships in the water, and it's the newer ship, and interesting. So MSC being an Italian cruise line, but they've launched it in North America. So MSC very aggressive, targeting that big cruise market in America, and, you know, and globally, and Australia, etc. as well. But I think it's sailing out of Miami to the Bahamas and the Caribbean. And again, they're one of these cruise lines that's developing their own destinations. So they've got a thing called Ocean Cay, MSC Marine Reserve, I think. But again, you know, private island where they control the experience, but also offer a unique selling point that you know, cruisers from other brands can't visit there. But yes, you know, really good news.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, there's so much more positivity. Even since we first started having these chats, probably about 2 months ago.
Yep.
It's really starting to turn around quite quickly.
Yeah, so great to see.
Australia needs to get off the rank a little bit.
Yeah.
Anyway. All right. Well, thank you, Bruce. That's pretty much covered everything we're going to talk about
No
today.
problem.
So thanks once again for coming along.
Pleasure.
And we'll catch up again next week, and hopefully we'll have some more positive local news.
Yep. You never know.
Say that every week, but we'll get there.
Good on you.
But yeah, thank you.
Have a good one.
Thanks, all right. Mate. Thanks, Bruce.
Cheers.
See you later.